We are live and welcome to the Transfer Exchange Show, the review. Today, we've lost a couple of people, yeah? But I'm not bothered because you've still got the chief scout here, Steve K. How you doing, Steve?
How you doing, Kieran? Hello, everybody.
I'm good. And we have got an extra special guest today. It's son of Chelsea, Daniel Charles, on his podcast. Thank you very much for joining us, Daniel.
Thanks for having me on, Kieran. It's going to be an interesting discussion. Glad I'm on after sort of a draw rather than a defeat. So it's a little bit more uplifting to talk about. I think I'll be a little bit more downbeat if I had to talk about Chelsea losing at Old Trafford again. So good to be here.
Honestly, mate, I can't lie. You are possibly one of the most positive podcasts I've ever seen. Like, even at the start, you're talking about wanting to be positive about the results and certain things. So, look, even if there would have been a defeat, I think you would have been up a little bit more upbeat about it. You'd have found the positives in it.
Probably.
All right, I love that. All right. So, obviously, it's a Chelsea special tonight. Before we kickstart, I'm going to say hello to the comment section. Peter G. Thank you for joining us, Peter G. All right. Make sure you like and subscribe. Boom. Obviously, go and follow the Transfer Exchange Instagram and Twitter. And go and follow our scouts. 2 of them aren't here tonight. They're otherwise occupied. One of them is still going strong. And we're going to kick off the show with the main topic. Life under Frank Lampard. In his first season, he couldn't buy any players. Frank Lampard managed to get Champions League football. And what I see is one of the most important things that Frank Lampard brought is hope for the youth players. For a team that has had or has one of the best youth academies in Europe, producing a string of top class players, top class professionals. Now they actually have some hope that they can come through into the first team. We'll start with you, Daniel. How's life been under Frank Lampard so far?
I think it's been a very positive experience. I think in terms of, I think it's hard for people who aren't Chelsea fans sort of outside the club in terms of the way supporters felt sort of just before Sarri left, how divided things were with the fans. I'd never seen it like that, and it felt really toxic. There was very sort of deep divisions at the club, and there was a feeling that something was broken at Chelsea. You had the transfer ban, you had Eden Hazard leaving, there was a feeling of despondency, a lot of fans feeling like they were disconnected from the club. And Frank Lampard was a very risky move. Like it was, I remember I love Frank. You can probably see a picture of Frank behind me here. He's my favorite player. I adore the guy, but I just thought this is a big move for Chelsea to make because they've just hired Maurizio Sarri, who's like he's not the norm of the managers we get, and it hasn't really worked out. And you get Frank in, who's highly inexperienced at the job. But as you've stated, not only with the youth being brought in and actually being given a chance at the club, which is something a lot of fans wanted to see, and them doing so well, it was also this feeling of unity inside Stamford Bridge, at least when we were at the ground, that wasn't there the previous year. And I think just what Frank represents to the club, whatever you think about sort of him as a coach, whether he's good enough to get Chelsea to the heights of English football again, I think what he brought just in terms of unity with the youth and the fans, I think was such a key thing at that moment. I think in terms of the history, it was such an important time for Chelsea fans, because I think if we didn't have that and they'd made the wrong decision, I think you could have had a very toxic season last year, in my opinion.
What was it about Sarri? Because even Sarri going on to Juventus now, he's had the same issues. But what is it about Sarri that divides most people, or even the team, the players?
Well, I was very positive towards Sarri and wanted to see him succeed. I was not someone who wanted to see him go. I was very disappointed when he left because it felt like, once again, we're hitting the reset button. I think it was a cultural thing because I think he was an ideas manager. He didn't have a CV of massive silverware, which when you look at all the managers basically under Abramovich that has been brought in, they've all won domestic titles. They've won Champions League. They've got a big reputation. This was a guy who was brought in with an idea of a style of play at Napoli that impressed. Was very much Napoli were like the hipster team when Sarri was there, and he was being brought in to instill this philosophy of football. And it wasn't only just the fact that Sarri didn't have the CV of silverware. He was trying to radically sort of change the way Chelsea played football. He was trying to turn us from a counter-attacking team into a possession-based side, which is something fans at the Bridge really... I think Chelsea fans, there's a lot of clubs who say we have a style of play. This is the Chelsea way, or, you know, the Arsenal way, the West Ham way, the Man United way. Chelsea don't really have a way in terms of, you can say this, there are certain elements like the type of striker we have, or being, you know, maybe a more pragmatic side at times, but I think Chelsea fans were quite miffed about that, and I think that it was always going to be difficult. And I think Sarri, the way he wanted to say at the start, it's going to take 18 months. I just think it bashed against the sort of the core of Chelsea. It was very much like an identity crisis that year, which I think Sarri, I think very much, it sounds like an obvious statement, but Sarri's year was so important because it led to Lampard. I don't think you get to Lampard without Sarri, and I know that's an obvious statement looking at the facts, but just in the sense of what Sarri represented and sort of clashing up. And anyone outside the club will be miffed by it because he got us third in the Premier League and he got us a Europa League trophy. And all the criticism of it was he can't win a trophy. Well, he shattered that myth in his first season and done it pretty emphatically in that Europa League final. So it was strange, but I think he needed to leave, as I said before, because I think it was too toxic. You couldn't have every match being a referendum on the manager. It wasn't helpful to anyone, even if I wanted to see Sarri succeed.
Yeah, I understand what you mean. Like, completely. It needed just a leveler, and Frank Lampard was that. Steve, how do you think Frank's done in his time there, in his first season, and starting to move on?
Yeah, I think Frank's done very well. I'm a great fan of his. I'm a great fan of his as a player, and I can see him going on to being a very good manager. I wish he would smile a bit more.
Stress, mate. It's a different kind of stress. It's a different kind of stress.
But I'm sure them smiles will come. It's funny how, like Daniel was saying about a leveller, because when Frank came in, you're saying about that they wasn't allowed to buy, but with Frank Lampard coming in, it felt like as he was the transfer to replace Eden Hazard for the fans. Like Eden Hazard went out, Frank Lampard's come in. You know, we can't buy, but there you go. You got Frank Lampard, and that's not a bad. It's not a bad thing to replace him with. And I think everyone, and I think Daniel and all the Chelsea fans, I mean, they was all wondering how Chelsea were going to do without Eden Hazard. I mean, losing arguably the best player in the Premiership, we all thought was going to be bound to affect the side. But as we always say, one player doesn't make a team. And Chelsea went on, and Frank Lampard took them on to have a really good season. I mean, you're never going to replace Hazard. They brought in Lampard, so it was a bit of a make weight for. It's very clever. I just think it's very clever, and he hasn't. You're never going to replace Eden Hazard as a player. I mean, he's irreplaceable. So people were telling me about, who are we going to replace Hazard with? You're never going to do that. It's never going to happen. Yeah. I mean, Frank came in, and in a way, numbed the pain of losing Hazard. And he had his knockers, but, he took them on. He's still Champions League football. And with the Premiership being as strong as it is now, that's a success. And people shouldn't be taking fourth place as as a failure. I mean, he's came in, finished fourth, got him into that. I mean, that's a big thing to do, and he deserves a big pat on the back for that. And a lot of people don't give him enough credit for that. I mean, it's nothing to be ashamed of. In the cups, again, nothing to be ashamed of. 2-1 defeat by Man United. It wasn't to be ashamed. They got to a cup final. Overall, we done well. A really good season, and I think he'll go on and just get better and better.
I think one thing that Frank does get labelled with is his lack of nous with your tactics. But I think it's probably a bit unfair, one. And two, he's still learning. He's still a relatively young manager, or very young manager. It's only his second job. And you can slowly see that it's very rare he makes the same mistake twice. when it's down to defending, whether it's down to when he's playing the same team. It's very rare. He seems to have a good record against teams once he's got that win because he knows how to speak. So to label him as he's got no tactics is, again, I find it.
That's poor. That's lazy.
It is. It's very lazy. Daniel, you must see that he has tactical nous. Do you know what I mean? He must have.
I think there's a lot, and it's a very modern thing now. Tactical identity, people crave about it. I'm someone myself who I think is very interested in that side of the game as it's evolved, and the amount of info now as fans we can get about coaches and reading books about Pep at Bayern and seeing tactical evolution there, and it's something that fans are a lot more interested in now, and I think he's only going to grow. Actually, in terms of Frank, I think what I liked about him in the first months of last season was he, for me, very much was continuing on what Sarri had already built. I think there was a worry that he was just going to throw a lot of the 9 months work away, in terms of Jorginho being in the team, Kovacic and other things that Sarri had worked on, and just sort of transitioning Chelsea from a reactive team to a more progressive team. And I think Frank, it was interesting very recently, I think it was just before the Sevilla game, Frank said, I'm not an attacking manager. He said that pretty clearly, which is weird to me because if you've been watching Chelsea for the past year, the exception of the previous two, the exception of like the last two games doesn't make us look like an attacking team. But for the last year, Chelsea have been a very expressive, very attacking team. Frank wants his team to have the ball. Sure, not as refined and sort of as positionally sort of structured as Sarri was in terms of what he wanted from the team, but he wants Chelsea to go on the front foot, and even if he's playing a 3-back system, he still wants us to be pressing. There were certain elements, it was inconsistent at times last season, and I cannot give you like an elevator pitch on what Frank Lampard's style of play is. I think it's very much based on fast movement, based on pressing. I think he wants the team to press hard. And I think, the style of players he sort of brought in, I think has allowed him to do that this summer. I think when you actually look, as I'm sure we'll get into the transfers he brought in, I think give you an indication of the place he's going. And we saw the best moments of Chelsea season last year was all of those things: fast movement, pressing, proactive. There weren't many times Chelsea parked the bus like they did under Jose or Conte. It was always going for the throats of the opposition. And for me, that's what I want to see from Chelsea. So it'd be interesting to see how it evolves. But yeah, I think that it's not, when someone says a groundbreaking revolution that Frank Lampard may be tactically naive, 2 years into his coaching role at one of the biggest clubs in Europe. I mean, it's not exactly, Sherlock here. It's I sort of roll bias because I'm like, that's exactly that's the risk of getting Frank Lampard in. So he's gonna be learning. He's gonna have ideas. There's gonna be things about him and the style of play he's learning on the job. And I think that's something Chelsea took the risk of when they appointed him last year. So I think it will grow. I actually think now he's got the players he wants. I think now you can make a fairer judgment. And as Steve was saying, last year, based on the restrictions he had, I think he done brilliant work, to be honest, to get us into that position.
Yeah. Steve, as Daniel was saying there about the players that Frank Lampard brought in, I mean, you've seen we've been on the case of every transfer that they've been bringing in.
Yeah.
Who did they bring in? Were they the right players? Were they missing anyone they should have brought in? I mean, you've got the likes of Werner, Havertz. Who else is there? There's Chilwell, great signing. I mean,
listen to the names you're saying already about that he's one of these managers that wants to go and defend, sit back, be boring, park the bus. I mean, you just named 3 players there who are the absolute total opposite of that.
Yeah.
You've also got in there. You've got Ziyech in there. You've got Mason Mount in there. You've got Pulisic in there. These ain't players that are going to, want to defend and just sit there and defend. These are attacking players. And even when you go up front and you look at Werner, I mean, the bloke. I mean, he's rapid. The bloke is rapid.
I think Chelsea.
When you're getting these players in the middle of the park, you're getting your Havertz's or your Pulisic's and the Ziyech's. I mean, they're there to play them balls through and through to players like Werner, use his pace and score goals. And So the fact that they're saying that he's a bit tactically unaware, I think that's ridiculous. I think he's more than tactically aware, because they had a big squad, Chelsea, a very big squad.
I think
Yeah,
I think they needed to bring in, what was it, a centre back, a left back, and a striker. They were the main ones. An experienced centre back. There was a lot of talk about Koulibaly at first. Then there was Declan Rice. It seemed like they'd got Malag Sarr. Again, he's more of a left back, come centre back. Again, quite inexperienced. That's why he's gone out on loan. But then they brought in Thiago Silva, which I thought was a very good bit of business. Free transfer. The only problem I see with that is he won't be able to play 40 games in the season, and then you're kind of back to square one with the players that you kind of weren't too sure of. But maybe the experienced head of Thiago Silva just being in the squad can help those players progress themselves. Do you think that was a part of the thinking of bringing Silva in, Daniel?
Yeah, Silva's sort of the outlier in our transfer business in terms of the way the transfer came about. All the other big signings, nearly all of them, Ziyech, Werner, Chilwell, Malang Sarr, Edouard Mendy, Kai Havertz, all of those players were sort of scouted for a while. They were first choice targets. They were targets the club had looked at for a while. I think obviously Silva is such a well-known name, but I think in terms of that problem position of centre back and Chelsea knowing that they needed to recruit this summer, I think it became a situation where maybe it was just an obvious option and went, we can't get our sort of long-term target here. Let's go for a bit of pragmatism. There's this brilliantly experienced player here who's motivated not only to come to a new league, he's got bags of winning experience. We lack someone. Chelsea lacked someone with danger awareness last year. Just organisation. It's an obvious thing for a Chelsea fan to say, but John Terry, the ability of JT all the way up to his later years to sniff danger, to know where to be at the right place at the right time. I mean, looking at Thiago Silva last night against Man United and watching him against Sevilla, it was like having JT back in the team at his best years, So those were big things. I think that, Silva was sort of the outlier because it was more of it is a short-term signing. That 2 years is the maximum. 2 years, you'd be really happy if we get 2 years out of him. It may only be 1 year based on fitness and all that stuff. So, it was smart. I think it may just for a short term, it may add that sort of intelligence back there and organisation we need, to be honest.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I was just about to say, you said it was very smart, and what Frank Lampard's done around him. Yes, he hasn't got the legs that he was, but he's never going to use that intelligence. He's never going to lose that. I still think he's got a couple of years in him. But what he's done around him, he's put in people like Chilwell. He's got in people around him like Torreira, who can come in, who have got legs. He's and Reece James, who I think is a fantastic player. These are players that can use that can help Silva when he's there. And that's what seems to be doing, and it's clever. It's very, very clever. He knows that he's got this incredible stallion of a footballer, a legend of a footballer, but he also knows he isn't going to be able to use his legs like he has done. So putting players in like Reece James, Tomori, who I think is a great player, be coming in, and Chilwell will help him out.
So is there anything you thought was missing, Daniel, from the buys in the summer?
No, not really. I mean, based on my expectations going into it, it blew all of my expectations out of the water, to be honest. The only area I think you can look at, if you're being really, and I think it is a problem area Chelsea are going to need to address eventually, is central midfield CDM, basically, because at the moment Chelsea don't have a natural DM in the squad, and everyone will say N'Golo Kante. Kante is not your holding midfielder. He's not a Claude Makelele. He can't do that role. There was a brief moment after Project Restart where it looked like Frank was going to go in that direction, but very quickly he's gone in the other direction again with Kante, because I think if you put Kante as the holding midfielder, just someone to sit there, I think you limit what Kante can do. There's a big debate around what Kante's best position is. It's been for a couple of years now. So that would be the one area, and that's why there's been rumours to Declan Rice and other players as well. So I think that would be the only area. But to be honest, it was just incredible to summer. It was in terms of the targets we got in front of other big teams. I don't think you can complain. It was such a stellar window. And I think, the signing of Kai Havertz was just astonishing based on what I expected, because I felt that it was like creative midfield was the one area I thought Chelsea didn't really need to invest. But it was such week after week, these signings, and they were coming off over and over. If we got a CDM, I would have quit ever playing career mode on FIFA again. There's no point playing career mode because it would never be able to, match up to what I saw in reality. So Chelsea's business was
Declan Rice.
Declan Rice has
been loading.
I think that's an inevitable move. To be honest, I think it will happen. And that's not me saying I'm ITK. I don't have any inside information. I just think, just based on the previous window, Chelsea now show that when they have a first choice target in their sights under Frank Lampard, they're likely to get it done. So I think Rice will be at Chelsea sooner rather than later, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think it's a move that he wants to make himself as well. He was a youth at Chelsea. He's got friends there. It's just one of them things that you just see it happening. It's the inevitable. Yeah. With Kai Havertz, I think there was a case that it was a transfer that opportunity that was too good to turn down. If you leave Kai Havertz by Leverkusen, do you have a chance of getting in next season when everyone else's finances are on point? I'm not sure you do. So it may not have been a player that you needed, but it's certainly a player you want.
It's a player we've wanted. Sorry to interrupt, but it was the most amazing thing after we signed him, because I think for a lot of people, the link started in like April, and then it really hotted up after the season finished. And then, of course, he became a Chelsea player. Brilliant reporting in The Athletic from Simon Johnson and Rafa Honigstein, where Chelsea were actually inquiring over Havertz before Lampard had even arrived, so like spring of 2019. So they'd already gone in and saying, this is a player we've targeted. I think his name's Scott McLaughlin. He's like the head of scouting at Chelsea. He had sort of earmarked Havertz and said, this is a player we want to build our team around. And even then, Chelsea knew they had a transfer ban, but they were like, when we get out of this transfer ban, we want to make a massive move, and we believe Kai Havertz is that player. So it's not just it's, of course, the stars aligned, in terms of, and it feels uneasy to say, but I think the conditions of obviously the pandemic this year of certain clubs like Real and Bayern not going in and pushing for Kai, that allowed Chelsea to get in front of the queue for what I think is going to turn out to be an astonishing player. So yeah, it was an amazing deal. It really was, and I think it just showed you sort of the Chelsea, how they've improved, I think, in the transfer market and recruitment over the previous years, because there was a few years back where we really got a transfer window wrong, and it's great to see this summer them getting it right with long-term targets over the line.
It feels like they've got a bit more of a direction, a bit more purpose for where they want to go. Whether that's someone upstairs doing it or whether it's the manager, I don't know. But it just seems like it's a lot more defined. But one position. Go on,
sorry, mate. No, I was just the one thing. I look at all these players, and it's like Daniel said, it's like having a fantasy football team on the best ones out there. But do you think at this particular moment in time, and I'm looking at their squad now, do you think he knows his best team? Because I find it hard.
I think you have to take into account, and this is something nearly all teams in the league are suffering with, no preseason. There was absolutely no. Chelsea had one preseason game, and barely any of our first team players now were in that game. Some of them hadn't even signed yet. Preseason is such a great place, I think, for Lampard. If it, in sort of a normal season, Lampard would have had hopefully about 5 to 6 games to maybe figure some of that out. You've seen players' fitness start to increase now, and that's been a struggle for the opening games of the season. Certain players being injured, Ziyech and Pulisic were injured right up until just the Southampton game. So it's been difficult for him. And in terms of Chelsea spending so much, and I know this is sort of a side point. I think there was a lot made that Chelsea were just going out and signing anyone available. Just sign anyone that becomes available. all of these names, with the exception of Silva, were names that Chelsea wanted, that Lampard wanted for a long time. I think Ben Chilwell was the perfect sort of symbol of this transfer window because he was being linked to Chelsea pre-Christmas. And we got linked to every left back you can think of on the market. Telles, Reguilon, Tagliafico, all of them were named, but Chilwell was the consistent name. So just because we spent a lot, we brought in a lot of players, and nearly all these players said that Lampard was the key factor in them signing, which I know is easy to say from a PR point. It's very easy for players to sell that in an interview, but the fact that all of them would be very keen to mention Lampard's influence over them joining the club, I think speaks volumes that there is a plan there. He doesn't know his best team, but I think in terms of the attacking configuration at the moment, but I think we're going to get there soon, because I actually think the amount of games we've got to play, I think Lampard's got an opportunity in these Champions League midweek games to really figure some of that out, which is good.
I mean, sometimes it ain't a bad thing, is it? It's not a bad thing when you're looking at all these players and you're sitting down there on a Thursday night and you're wondering what team to play on a Saturday and you're thinking about who to play. I mean, that's got to be a good thing, isn't it? Because it's not a bad thing.
Yeah. One position which was a bit of a position which you really need to sort out was your goalkeeper, and you went out and bought Mendy. One thing I have noticed about him is he is as old school goalkeeper as you can get, which I love, because he's a Chelsea goalkeeper, which is a type of goalkeeper like Petr Cech, like just a goalkeeper there to save it, command the area, and bully anyone that wants to come anywhere near him. The difference, I think, he went for Kepa, which is very much a modern goalkeeper, and it hasn't worked on many different levels, whether it's his physical presence, whether his confidence is now feels like he's now shot. But what do you do with Kepa now? Because 70 million, it's a player you've got to try and get as much money as you can back for him. He's on massive wages.
Massive contracts as well.
Big long contracts, and he's already said he wants to stay and fight for his place. What do you do with a player like that then?
I think it's very difficult. It's such a tough place to be in. I think Marina Granovskaya has done some amazing work in getting massive transfer fees for players that are unwanted at the club. Like, she got 60 million out of Atletico for Alvaro Morata, which was like the most stunning. Talking about all the amazing business she's done in getting 60 million out of Madrid for Morata, based on the evidence of what he was doing at Chelsea, is incredible business. So I don't think we should doubt Marina's sort of genius in sort of a negotiation. So maybe she could work her magic in terms of Kepa and getting a decent fee for him, but it's obviously not going to be anywhere near the 70 million or 75 million we pay for him. It's that we were talking about Sarri earlier. He was brought in sort of a panic because Courtois left very late on in the window, and Chelsea had to act. We couldn't go into the season with just Caballero, and I think Rob Green had been brought in that summer, so like that couldn't be. We couldn't have those two goalkeepers, and Kepa suited Sarri's style of play. In terms of being that modern goalkeeper. The problem is, when you shift managers like Chelsea do so frequently, you're going to have players that find themselves out in the cold, because if you're constantly changing the style of play, there are going to be some players that will just become irrelevant, like a Timothy Bakayoko, I think was part of that as well. So on Kepa, it's difficult. I don't know, because I think the pandemic has really changed the landscape in it being sort of more of a buyers than sellers market. Chelsea have a massive bloated squad. I think, you look at the trouble we had getting Antonio Rudiger off, on the deadline day. If even a loan or a permanent move, it was difficult. Drinkwater still at the club. There are so many players at Chelsea currently who aren't getting anywhere near the first team, which I think is going to make it difficult. I think the thing that maybe Chelsea will hope is that by the time we get to March, April, May time in 2021, maybe the market may look a little bit more positive, and say a Spanish club would be willing to take him again. And he'll find his place there, but I think it's definitely going to be a huge loss, and he's not going to be getting in the first team if Mendy continues performing the way he has done, because he adds, as I agree absolutely in terms of Mendy, he's just instantly added that assurance, that control, that calmness, and just, as harsh as it is, just saving basic shots, which is something Kepa just lost. I mean, he was just look at the stats. He was historically bad last season in the Premier League. He was below average. We were expected to concede something like just over 30 goals, and we ended up conceding 54. Now, you can look at the defense, but I think a lot of people on expected goals. When you actually look at it, you have to look at the goalkeeper. And the fact that Mendy has started now, what was it? The Tottenham game, the Palace game, Sevilla and Man United, and he's got 3 out of 4 clean sheets, and Chelsea have looked so much more stable at the back. I think that shows you how vital the move was. And sorry, just to finish off, you said Petr Cech. Coming from the same club Petr Cech came to Chelsea from in 2003, Petr Cech had a massive hand in this transfer. Basically, Frank Lampard turned to Cech and said, "You can
find
find me the best keeper here." And Mendy was another one. I think our goalkeeping coach, our former goalkeeping coach, was really high on and said, "This is a guy you should go and get." And a lot of us didn't know Mendy before we were linked to him, but when you read about him, reading scout reports, he had a really impressive year, and he was saving more shots than he expected to save last year, which is hopefully will improve our defense this year.
Yeah, I mean, well, we got a little rundown from Jerome on what Mendy's like, and when he was describing him, it was very much like he said, "Oh, it's good shot stopper, very good in commanding of the ball, not good with his feet." And I was thinking, that's if you don't play that way, it's not important. Like goalkeepers playing with their feet, okay, you'll say you have to be able to play your feet. Look, he's not tripping over his shoelaces and tripping over his feet every time he touches the ball. He can handle himself to a certain level, but he's not going to overplay it. He's not going to try and be tricky around the box. Yeah. I think one thing you touched on earlier is where you said Chelsea didn't have a style as such, but what they did have is they had a style of player. It was athletic. And Kepa didn't fit that for me. Steve, how much of a difference do you think Mendy's making already?
Oh, he's making a massive difference, as Daniel just said in the last 3 games. I mean, I see him on against Manchester United. He makes things simple. When the ball comes across, he's assured. He catches the ball. He doesn't drop it, which is what you want from a goalkeeper. Soon he's looking up, looking for the ball straight away to throw it out. Where with Kepa, he used to drop the ball. He's very nervous with his feet. Not to mention the fact of what they paid for Mendy as well. We paid £26 million for him to Kepa's 71. But again, as Daniel said, great work from the Chelsea hierarchy up there, sporting directors who's gone and got him, because it looks like he's going to be there for a long while. I mean, I don't know if they're probably going to need a number 2, because I don't. Caballero's coming up to a bit, and I think Cech's 39 years old now, so I can't see him, even though they've put him on the list now so that he can play. But he's old school. He's like you said, he's old school. He makes things easy. You could tell, like, when he's if you're a defender, you could tell that they would be assured when he's behind. There's nothing more better than catching a ball. Your goalkeeper catches a ball from a corner. So
I think so.
Like that.
I think that's massively important. That's one of the most important things, is when your defence has confidence in you, because the goalkeeper will know when the defence is not confident in you, and you have confidence in your defence as well. So in moments where they are covering you, it's a teamwork thing rather than a "I saved your ass" kind of thing. And that's what it can get like sometimes when you don't trust the defence and the defence doesn't trust you anymore, and it's a bad relationship to have. As we said, as you spoke about, there's been a lot of money spent at Chelsea. Some big name players brought in, and Roman Abramovich isn't he's not one for giving people time when things look like they're going wrong. What do you think Frank Lampard's minimum expectations are? Are you worried that this could end prematurely if results don't start picking up and they may even have challenging for the league?
Yeah, good.
I think it's always tough to know what's going on in Roman's mind. I think a lot of people try and guess. You can only go by his actions. Now, his actions mostly over the last 15 years have given you the impression he will cut a manager if they aren't doing well. Once again, I go back to this Sarri sort of season, because Sarri wasn't sacked. He left by his own admission, basically. We don't know the meetings that took place, whether it was you're going to be sacked anyway, where you're sort of jumping before you're pushed sort of scenario. We don't know that. I can only go by the facts, which was Sarri, I think, wanted to leave, wanted to go back home. Juventus came calling, and that was a good move for him. But I would have been intrigued to see if Sarri would have stayed a little bit longer, to see how much time he got, because there were some difficult moments under Sarri where I think a lot of fans expected Sarri to, bite the bullet and was going to get sacked after some of those games, the 4-0 to Bournemouth, the 6-0 to Man City. And Roman stuck by him. And that was an interesting thing at the time. Now, it's tough to know with sort of Roman what he's going to do. I personally think it's important now Chelsea give Lampard 3 years. Now, I think the minimum expectation this year, for me at least, is I think Chelsea getting third and not being 30 points behind the eventual champions, I think should be the requirement. I know it's very easy at the moment to look at the current state of the league and go, there's an opportunity, and there could be an opportunity, but I always think go back to your preseason expectations, and my preseason expectations were third place. If we can be within 6 or 7 points of Liverpool and Man City, I think that could be seen as an improvement after last season, and getting closer to them, and maybe beating them in some of the Premier League games. So that's the big thing for me. I don't know what the sort of the thinking is at boardroom. I would expect top 4 is the minimum, like apparently it was last year, because top 4 is so essential to the way Chelsea run as a business. Chelsea basically need top 4 to, not like the Man United situation where Man United can sort of deal 1 year with not being in the Champions League and still spend a lot of money. It's not the same for Chelsea, and Chelsea are looking to be a self-sustainable club. That's that may seem ridiculous to outsiders based on Roman's investment, but that's the truth of the last transfer window. As much as we spent money, a lot of it was by the sort of the funds we'd got for players we sold, like Eden Hazard to Real Madrid and Alvaro Morata to Atletico. So I think Champions League football, absolutely. I think next season would be the expectation of a title charge more. That would be the expectation based on what happens this season as well.
And what do you think about in Europe as well? Because surely if you drop out of Europe early, that's going to be a massive sting for Roman.
Yeah, I think it obviously depends on the draw. Chelsea have not won a Champions League knockout tie since April of 2014 when we beat PSG. That's a long time. I mean, some of those years are when we were not in Europe at all, the Conte year, and we're in the Europa League under Sarri, but that's a long time. And I think a lot of it depends on our group. If Chelsea, we need to finish top, because that usually means you're going to get a fairer draw. Sometimes that's not the case, but that gives you the best opportunity. I think Champions League quarterfinals, I think, would be a good thing, because it's always that thing, right, of like Chelsea, we won the Champions League in the year where it was least expected of us to win the Champions League. There were many better squads that couldn't win it. And it's always in a cup competition. You never know. You don't know what the landscape of football is going to look like by the time we get to that period of the season. I think, there should be, I'm sure Lampard will feel the same. And with the players we have, you think if it clicks, it could be very serious, and Chelsea, a bit like Liverpool a couple of years ago, may not be ready to go for the title, but could be good enough to challenge for a Champions League title, if you know what I mean. That could be sort of the grounding and getting to, say, a semi and knocking out one of the big European teams. I think would be a massive thing for this squad and for Lampard. So, you want to see progress in there. I don't want to see us getting knocked out of the round of 16 again, because that's been a consistent theme over a number of years for Chelsea. Yeah,
definitely. Steve, do you think that Roman's got the patience to just have a top 4 and potentially push on a little bit more in Europa, in the Champions League, or do you think he's looking at how much money he's spent, and he could be thinking results early doors in the season ain't been too good?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think Frank's got anything to worry about at the moment, but I do agree with the fact that Roman Abramovich has been proven a little bit trigger happy in the past.
Like Julius Caesar. He's like
which ain't a bad thing, So, I mean, how many times have Chelsea changed manager in the following season, gone on and won the title? I mean, it's happened. It's happened a couple of times. So when Roman Abramovich, he's looking at a way that he does things, and he's thinking, well, it works. So I do worry for Frank if they don't get at least into the Champions League, because I think it is the money that a lot have been spent. Yes, most of the money's been spent, because of the money that's been that was got for Hazard and Morata. but the money would still have been wasted. I don't think fourth place would be a problem for Frank. If he starts finishing in the Europa League places, I'd worry for him. I'd worry him just for the fact of what Roman Abramovich has been seen to do in the past. I hope not. I really hope not. I love to see managers, given a chance, because the way the Premiership is nowadays, you've got 6-7 teams. There ain't a lot between them. So I hope that the chairman look at that. It'll be the same for Solskjaer. It'll be the same for Mourinho, and it'll probably be the same for Lampard. If they don't get into that Champions League position, I do worry, and that he could pull the trigger. I hope not, though.
Yeah, that's the thing. It's for me. It's not always about where he's finishing; it's where he's looking along the way as well. How results are coming, how are they beating teams? If they are losing, how are they losing? Who they go out to in the Champions League, or who have they? It's things like that would be very important and in making a decision. I don't necessarily think it will be a case of if he finishes top 4. I think it will be something before that. I hope, because with young managers, he's learning his trade. As you've seen with Chelsea, they're an exciting team to watch. I just think he should be given enough time. But it is hard when you've had all that money to spend, and you've got Roman Abramovich as the chair, as the owner. I mean, he's won a lot of trophies for a reason, and he's built up Chelsea to what they are now by doing that. So you can't really knock it.
I mean, Frank's got an hard job on its own, just trying to work out what his best midfield is. I mean, that is some players he's got in that midfield. He's got about 8 or 9 players that you could easily start every Saturday.
Yeah, exactly. And
it's very difficult.
It's very difficult. And touching on that, one we're speaking about youth, and one player who it was just written about recently in the Athletic, that Billy Gilmore's looking like he could potentially be going out on loan in January. Very highly regarded by players, coaches alike. Do you think this is the best move for Billy Gilmore to get some playing time under his belt?
That would be a massive surprise to me. And I think to a lot of Chelsea fans, if he was to get loaned out in January. I understand maybe the impact of the injury. That's why, because, players coming back from injury, he should be back in 3 weeks now, I think it is. He got that knee injury in July. But if you look at last season, he broke into the team under Lampard. Just before lockdown, he had these 2 incredible performances against Liverpool and Everton, where we were talking about Chelsea not really having a natural DM, and he was adding a balance to our midfield that we just don't have. Because unfortunately, Jorginho, I'm a fan of Jorginho, but there are limitations to what he can do. There are limitations to what Kante can do. There are limitations to what Kovacic can do in that sort of central, deep-lying midfield area that Frank has to choose from at the moment. Gilmore was sort of adding the best of all those players. He looked so mature. He's still a very young player. I'd be a bit stunned, because I think Frank loves Billy Gilmore, and I think he would give him a chance. I think there is a sense with Frank, and he's proved this over the past year. He doesn't really care about the name on the back of his shirt. He will give players opportunities. I think he does believe in a meritocracy, and I think that Gilmore will be given a look in when he returns, because he was given a look in last season, and I don't see why Frank would just give up on him. Not give up on him. Of course, a loan move is beneficial to young players, but I just think Gilmore's sort of at that place in the squad where I don't think maybe a loan's that beneficial. Also, just based on the squad and the players we have in that midfield, but Gilmore could add the answer, at least for a short term, to help Chelsea out in midfield. So I'd like to see him get some more football, to be honest, before he's sent out on loan.
Yeah, well, I was going to add to that. It was when you just looking down the comment section of this at the Athletic thread that said that was it was massively mixed. There was some fans like, he needs to get time after his injury, and there was a fair few that were saying, no way, he's integral to the pivot. He's important to be around the squad. Steve, do you think what would you say would be best off?
I like Billy Gilmore. I mean, we did a little 20-minute thing on him, didn't we, on a show a little while ago? And we was all waxing lyrical about the boy. But saying that, he's out until November. I've heard with his knee injury. He's only 19 years old. it's simply a matter of whether Lampard's going to play him or not. If he's not going to be part, if he's not going to play him, if he's not going to be part, then he's got to go out on loan. And it's just a matter of trying to work out whether he will fit into that midfield and get game time. I looking at the midfielders, looking at the team. Daniel knows a lot more about Chelsea than I do. I find it hard to see where he's going to fit in every week, because at 19 you need game time. You need to be starting to play every week, and at the moment I don't see that happening at Chelsea because of these array of stars that they've got. I mean, Ziyech, Kante, Man, Jorginho, Kovacic, Pulisic, Havertz. Where does Gilmore fit in? Where does he play? Where does he go? And it's the same old thing. We spoke about it loads of times when we talk about youths and players. At 19 years old, they must have game time. They must start having to go. There's no good them sitting on the bench and get them playing in League Cups. I mean, the two games that Daniel was talking about, I watched them. I think he was man in the match in both games, weren't he, Daniel?
Absolutely.
Absolutely. I mean, the kid has got, he's got pure quality.
Yeah.
And I hope he plays. But Daniel might be able to answer the question on where he would play in that section in midfield. But I just find it hard. So from my point of view, he may need to go out on loan because he needs to play.
One of the things that obviously we were during the summer we had the transfers. One thing that I found odd was when I got that call to say that Chelsea were interested in or inquired about Guendouzi, and I thought to myself, how? They've got so many central midfielders. They got Kante, they got Jorginho, they got Kovacic. You're thinking what? But obviously there is something that they're needed, that there's missing. Yeah. And you're saying it's the DM role, and if you think that Gilmore could potentially fill that role.
He could. I mean, I don't want to put too much pressure on a young player and say, I think unfortunately that's something that has happened with certain young players within the Chelsea squad. How exciting it is, you build them up, and Gilmore, you can just look at those two brilliant games against Liverpool and Everton, right? And they were brilliant. They were brilliant performances. I think the main thing I took away from them was that the sign of maturity from a player that young in two very important games of Chelsea season at the time. But then post-lockdown in Project Restart, he played again and he looked a lot more his age. He struggled to sort of stay in the first team. Him and Kante, I remember in particular he got hooked off at half-time. I don't know if you remember this last year against Leicester in the Cup. He played the first half and he looked really shaky. So you've got to understand there's that development period, but I do agree it's about game time for him. But I do think in terms of like the Havertz, Ziyech, Pulisic, Gilmore's not going to be fighting with those players for minutes. That's not the area he's going to be playing. At least that's what we've seen of him so far at Chelsea. He's going to be competing with Jorginho and Kovacic, and Kante. Sort of at the moment, he reverted to a 3-4-3 last night, but I think 4-2-3-1 has been the predominant formation he's played so far this season. So he'd be competing for one of those two spots. And although there are all those three players in front of him are senior players with quality, I think there has been quite a clear indication, even though he started so far this season and has scored a few goals for us so far this season, Jorginho isn't in the long-term plans of Frank Lampard. He has sort of been told, look for a new club, basically. And I think they struggled to get him off this summer. So I'd expect him to be leaving soon. So then a role could sort of come up. I mean, I'm sure you speak about this a lot on your pod. For young players, timing is so essential. Yes. And injuries are so relevant. Yeah. I spoke about this with Callum Hudson-Odoi recently, Ruben Loftus-Cheek. I'm sure you can pick out many names. I mean, like Marcus Rashford and Harry Kane are the best examples where timing benefited their careers to a great extent. And I just wonder, it's the same with like Ethan Ampadu out on loan at the moment. Like he was another player you could have seen fill that role, but he needed game time massively after last season at Leipzig, where he barely got any minutes. So for Gilmore, I think it's going to be up to Lampard. I bet it will be down to how he performs in training, how the squad looks by January, because maybe Frank has settled on his first team by then and it's clicking. And then, because that probably won't benefit Gilmore, will it? If the team starts clicking and he finds the perfect midfield to like the pivot of say Georgie or Kova or it's Kante in there as well. And then he's like, I'm going with that. then I'd maybe look at getting Gilmore out on loan to get some minutes. But as well, squad depth. I mean, I think having a big squad has never been more valuable than this season. So Chelsea may still look at that and go, we'll keep him around. So it'll be interesting to see.
I think with someone when you've got a manager like Frank Lampard, I think whatever happens with Gilmore, I think you'll know it's the right thing, whether he goes out on loan or whether he stays.
He'll be thinking long term.
Because I think if I was a Chelsea fan, I would be trusting Frank Lampard with my young players, and I think he wants to bring back Ethan Ampadu as well, didn't he, in January as well. So yeah, I would be trusting Frank whatever he decided to do with the young boys.
Yeah, I think Chelsea have been linked to Borussia Mönchengladbach. Is it
Dennis
Zakaria? So obviously they are looking for someone in that position long term. I know he was trying to get Jorginho to Juventus while Sarri was there. So wherever Sarri goes, Jorginho will be linked to. So it looks like long term Jorginho will be going anyway. Expectations, minimum requirements. What are your expectations for the season? What are you hoping for? What would be your minimum requirements, Daniel, for Chelsea this season in Europe and domestically?
I think, third, I think it is for me where my expectations were at the start of the season. You can be influenced at the moment, and it's hard to sort of see how the Premier League's shaping up because everyone's dropping points. There's been some surprising results. There's been some big injuries. There's been, moments where teams have looked brilliant. No one really has looked consistent, especially out the sort of the regular top six. I mean, all of those teams have showed frailty. So it could be another like 13-14 season where there's about 3 or 4 teams in contention for the Premier League title, which maybe helps Chelsea. But for me, no, I think third. I think we have to be closer to the title race. That doesn't mean we're in the title race right up until the end of the season. I just think 33 points. I think a lot of Chelsea fans would feel, well, we've not progressed at all here. And I think we need to get out of the slog for Champions League football. We've spent the last 3 years doing that under Conte, under Sarri, under Lampard last year. I don't want to get to the final 10 games and it's a pressure thing where we need to get this amount of points to get into the Champions League. I think by then it should be pretty safe. I think Chelsea need to get out of that to really progress. You want to get sort of out of the, Man United and us were sort of competing for that spot last year. I think we need to progress beyond that. And that's tough in such a competitive league. And really just before you go into a big title race and win a Premier League title, really you're only looking at third, right? But I think just in terms of the gap of points, even if we don't think Champions League, I think we have to win our group. It's going to be tough for Sevilla. They're a really good side, as we've seen the other night. But that it's a group Chelsea should be winning. They've been handed quite a kind group, to be honest. And for me, Champions League quarterfinals, I think would be a big thing because I think it just helped the development of the team. I think that the confidence it would bring to win, back-to-back legs against potentially a very good side, I think would help the team. So those are my expectations, really. Winning a cup of any kind under Frank Lampard would be special. I cannot sort of undersell that. Winning an FA Cup would mean as much to a lot of Chelsea fans, including myself, as winning a Premier League title, because that's how much Lampard means to Chelsea fans. And I think that's the thing when we were speaking about earlier with how much time he's going to get. I think those moments would really be emotional to Chelsea fans, and I think the club would understand that. So say if we finish third, quarterfinals of Champions League, and we win an FA Cup, all right, it's not a Premier League title, but I think that would be seen as progress based off last season.
Yeah, I just hope that your hierarchy have the same kind of mindset as your fans do at the moment, because it seems like you're in a good place. You're patient, and you've got a bit of togetherness. I mean, I've been in a situation where I couldn't even look at another one of my own fans at points, and it's a horrible place to be in. So I completely understand where you was. That's the only worry I have, is that they're not of that thinking, because the way you've just said there, the enjoyment, the love that you'd have to see one of your all-time greatest players as a manager lift up an FA Cup trophy. It would cancel out. Obviously, you'd still want the top 4, but it would cancel out anything else that had probably gone wrong in that season. It'd probably be like with me, Ian Wright, being Arsenal manager and lifting the FA Cup. Do you know? It's a moment.
it would make I think a lot of fans. I mean, it depends on if we'd be in the stadium at that point, based on current sort of expectations of if we're actually allowed back in the ground. But you could imagine Chelsea fans in that ground, how emotional that would be for them. You know, in terms of seeing that, especially for someone like myself who's grown up watching Frank Lampard play at Chelsea and now as the coach. I think it's unfortunately for Chelsea, when I preach about us being patient about a manager, I'm sort of preaching just into fellow Chelsea fans. And unfortunately, until Chelsea prove that they can give a manager 3 or 4 years, that they can be patient with a project, even with setbacks, that's not going to, like, no one outside of Chelsea is going to buy that, right? There's always going to be that expectation that this manager could be sacked within 2 weeks, right? Chelsea need to set those expectations by backing a manager for 3 or 4 years for me. So then I can, my argument of sort of my belief in sort of a 3 or 4 year project will actually be a little bit more realistic. But we'll have to wait and see, won't we? I think that my hope is there is that expectation. And I actually think the backing financially of Lampard this summer, I think gives you an indication of how much the club trusts. Because why would the club back him that much if they didn't trust him? That's the question I'd ask. Everyone goes, oh, it's a target on his back. Why would they spend so much? Why would they bring in long-term targets? Why would they back him on a target like Ben Chilwell and spend that amount on a left back? I think it's because they trust him and they think the club is going in a good direction.
Yeah, and it'd be nice for you guys. It's a full circle. Frank Lampard was one of the first ones to start players that you brought in to kick off this Chelsea revolution, which is where they are now. To finish it off as a manager would be excellent. Steve, what do you feel like the minimum requirements or expectations should be for in Europe and domestically?
Well, I'm probably going to be a little bit controversial. Don't worry, Daniel. It's not the bad way. It's the good way. I think they could do a lot more than what people think this season. I think the way Man City and Liverpool started, if Chelsea click with the players they got and the team they got, I think they could get second. I think they could get second. They've got an excellent goalkeeper now in Mendy, and with the defence at the back with James and Chilwell, Silva and Aspilicueta. That's a fantastic defence. They've got excellent players to come in. If any of those ever get injured, they've got cover. They've got probably the best midfield in the Premiership, bar none. And then up front, they've got Timo Werner. And if they click, at the moment they're all a bit on and off at the moment. 1 minute they're thrashing someone, and the next minute they're getting beat, or then they're going through a game where they're winning, like as we know, with 3-0. Then they come back, and it seems a little bit over the place. But if you look into that, you can see that there's a team appearing there. But I believe that if they click, they could easily get second place. As far as European football goes, I wouldn't to worry too much about European football at the moment. I'd concentrate on getting this side right, because this side is a new side in the making. It's not like normally when you go into Champions League football, what happens is you go in there with a side that's ready made, that you've already done for a couple of years. This side ain't that. This side is a new side. So if you get knocked out, don't start having to go at the manager. Don't want the manager's head. This is a new side. It's like what you said, Kieran, right? Give them a couple of years, few years. Let them make themselves into a Champions League side, because this side is they're gelling. They're getting together. They're new. They're getting to know each other. So don't worry about that too much. But I think they can make second.
All right. Okay. Now for my turn. Now, I think with the money that Frank Lampard spent, he will have expectations on his back, but he'll know that as well. And the kind of manager, the kind of player that Frank Lampard was, he'd take that on his shoulders. Which is probably why you're seeing his face not much smiling at the moment, because it's all very serious.
Smile, Frank, smile.
He seems to have started to get a bit of cohesion in defence, especially when Silva's playing, which is good. Mendy, I think, is an excellent signing. After one game, you could see that he was the guy. and you could see the difference in Kepa. I think Chelsea need to be challenging in a title race, not necessarily to the end, but I think it needs to be something that's serious till up until over past Christmas. And with regards to Champions League, I feel that where you said quarterfinals would be good, I think that in my eyes, I think that should be a minimum requirement. I think if you bow out at that stage, okay, it's a step forward. But I just think that with the players you have, I think that's what you should be expecting. And I don't see any reason why you couldn't get that. As I said previously, Frank Lampard's not making the same mistakes twice. Last year, I think it was your first game in the Champions League. It's very naive, lost to Valencia. Completely different to Seville. And Seville's a better team. Completely different the other day. 0-0, bang. That's where you start. Start with that. It's a different kind of football. You've got to be patient. And I think quarterfinals is where you guys need to go. And I can't see why you wouldn't be able to do it. Roman, I don't know. Roman, give him a chance. Give him time to play with his team and get him together and get him gelled.
Exactly.
Because
Yeah.
I think he's a good manager and you've got a very good team there. Daniel, thank you very much for tonight, man.
No worries, man. My
I don't think
pleasure.
I've ever had so much fun talking about Chelsea. It doesn't happen often. Yeah, it was a team that I weren't very good friends with anyone who was a Chelsea fan, apart from one person when I was younger. And yeah, I mean, I enjoyed a lot tonight. Thank you for coming on.
Thanks for inviting me, man.
No, your channel's doing really well. Tell everyone where they can find you and whatnot. Go for it, man.
Thank you, mate. Yeah, great discussion. You can find me, Son of Chelsea, on YouTube. Basically, make sort of daily videos about Chelsea, whether that's Q&A, news videos, match reviews, match previews, all that good stuff. Not only on YouTube, you can get Son of Chelsea through podcasts now. Nearly all my video content goes through podcasts. If you like to listen to podcasts, you can get it just as an audio version. So Son of Chelsea on YouTube, Son of Chelsea on most podcast sites as well, and also on Twitter at Son of Chelsea, and Instagram, Son of Chelsea YT. I think I've covered everything there. I don't think I've got a MySpace page, so that's about it for all the social links. So that's about it.
Maybe if you've got a DeLorean, you might have a MySpace page.
Yeah.
But if you didn't hear it, Son of Chelsea. There's only one. If you type in Son of Chelsea and it's not Daniel, it's a fraud. There's one. It's Daniel. Again, thank you for coming on tonight.
No worries, mate.
Really enjoyable, man. Would love to get you on sometime again, maybe when, hopefully before the January transfer window, but maybe when there's like some transfer news coming up with Chelsea, we'll get you on and have another chat about it, man.
No worries.
Cool. Thank you very much, man. Take care.
Cheers, mate.
All right.
Thank you, Daniel.
Again, I'd love to say thank you very much for Daniel Charles coming on that Son of Chelsea podcast. Make sure you go and give him a subscribe. Go and give him a like. Go and follow all his socials because he knows his football and I thought he was brilliant tonight. Really good, really good. Really enjoyed it.
Very good.
All right. It's just me and Steve now.
Yeah.
But,
Do you feel lonely?
I don't feel lonely, mate. I
You're
never
all
feel
right.
lonely. I never feel lonely. And it's time for the transfer roundup. I bet everyone thought it was gone. You all thought the transfer roundup was gone, but no. Anyone know the
Never
Arsenal
gone.
score?
Never gone.
Killing me. In there, it's burning. It's burning. I don't know the score, mate. It's killing me.
Where's the missus?
I tried to have a sneaky peek with like one eye, and it's like that.
What was that, Daniel? What did you say? Say that again. We're professional people. We're professional.
Look. 8 o'clock every Sunday. You know you can catch us. Look, if your TV's gone down, but you got the internet, you know you can catch the Transfer Exchange show every Sunday at 8 o'clock on KS1 TV.
You don't need
Bang.
TVs. Get rid of it.
Who needs TVs when you've got a phone and you got the KS1 TV?
Yeah.
Subscribed, notifications on. Pow! You know how it is.
You never know where to put your Christmas tree, do you? Every year, get rid of the telly. You've got no worries of you.
And we ain't going nowhere.
Exactly.
There's journalists out there quivering in their boots. You shouldn't be. Come join us. We're a family. We're all here together. All right. Transfer roundup. Let's go. Liverpool are interested in Brighton centre-back. Oh, Liverpool being interested in Brighton centre-back Ben White has been dismissed as football talk by Brighton boss Graham Potter. Mauricio Sarri is in pole position to take over the job at Fiorentina. Erling Haaland would prefer a move to Real Madrid over Manchester United, according to Manchester Evening News. I mean, if there's ever going to be a place that's going to, you'd think might be biased about Haaland wanting to go to Manchester, it'd be the Manchester Evening News. So if they're telling you that, I mean, it's pretty much concrete. And these local papers, they're very good. Keep like the Yorkshire Evening News, Manchester Evening News. These local ones, keep an eye on them. They get it first. Trust me.
And I'll tell you what. You'd have to give it to Manchester United if they went for Haaland, wouldn't you?
Yeah, now you would. After all that, after all this,
some views, man.
After all this, no way.
You'd have to say, yeah, I'll just wait you for that.
Yeah, of 0 F's given about what anyone thinks. That'd be Man United if they went for Haaland now. Newcastle.
What's the matter? What have I done wrong?
Yeah. Newcastle fans have donated £20,000 to charity as opposed to paying for the £15 coverage on pay-per-view. Well done, Newcastle fans. Love that. Arsenal did, in fact, make a bid for Sporting Lisbon's 17-year-old winger, Gelson Fernandes, as confirmed by his dad. That was in London Football. Jamie Carragher says Liverpool should go for Dayot Upamecano. Well, there's some information on who they're actually going for later on, and we'll get to that. The Ozil situation. So there's a lot of news there's a lot of talk going around about the political side of things with regards to Ozil being left out of the squad and things that he said about China, which is the sole reason why he's been left out of the squad. Absolute nonsense. It's absolute nonsense. The quotes that came out from Mesut Ozil about him being about China and whatnot. Mesut Ozil's played 15 times since then. So I don't know why it would make any difference that he's all of a sudden not allowed to play now. So just think about that. The situation is Ozil's wages. Ozil gets 350 grand a week. Yeah. So basically, if Ozil's not in the Premier League squad, not in the Europa League squad, his basic is about 140 something. Yeah. So Ozil is getting paid nowhere near as much as this 350 a week if he's not playing. He's in on performance-based bonuses as well as a basic. And you'll get that with a lot of these players that are earning 300-400 grand a week. Aaron Ramsey, for instance, has never taken away 400 grand a week in his time at Juventus. Why is that? Because he'd have to earn 400 grand a week. He'd have to play for the duration of his contract. He'd have to play pretty much all of the games. He'd have to be involved in every single squad, hitting targets and whatnot. And then he'd get loyalty bonuses on top of that and whatnot. And then that calculates to 400 grand a week. This is how the press like to write it. When they wrote about Willian, they didn't put that he earns 150 grand a week or 120 grand a week. They put Willian's earning 200 grand a week. That was because he's signed on fee, his loyalty bonuses and whatnot if he stays the duration of the 3 years. Please stop listening to all this nonsense, yeah? We'll try and get the truth and then give it to you. But the Ozil situation is nothing to do with his thing that he's in China. There was an issue with regards to the Pro Evolution, the game, because Arsenal and Man United are the only clubs in England that have exclusive rights or have given exclusive rights to Pro Evolution for the names and the players' names and whatnot. But the contract on that is come on, the contract on that one game I'm sorry, that it's not enough to leave a player out of a squad that could be detrimental to a team. Like, let's think about that. It never happened. All right. Chelsea are ready to let Kepa go out on loan in January, with Seville considering a move. Chelsea would have to give up a lot of wages on that. They'd want money because that's essentially you're giving away the player for what, a year, 2 years, and 6 months. That's 6 months of that 72 million that you're not getting of that player. So you'd want a fee for him as well. So for Chelsea to loan him out, you'd have to drop his wages and you'd have to cut a fee. Chelsea are looking for a sale. They're not looking for a loan. They'd be looking for a sale.
They'd have to pay his contracts off as well. They've got to pay his, what is it, another 3 years? Well,
they'd have to pay a part of his contract. Like, I can't see it, because if he's going to move, he's going to want them wages. Chelsea are in a pickle when it comes to getting Kepa off the books.
Nobody's going to pay that.
No one's going to pay that, man.
No one's going to pay that.
They're in a bit of bother with regards to Kepa and the situation there. Tottenham are planning talks to offer out of favour left back Danny Rose an early termination of his contract. Comes from Football Insider. Chelsea, as we just spoke, are interested in Borussia Mönchengladbach midfielder Dennis Sakara. Manchester United and Manchester City are also interested, according to Bild. Sheffield United are ready to revive their interest in Reading midfielder John Swift. John Swift is actually a player that came through the youth ranks at Chelsea. I remember watching him years ago in the FA Youth Cup final. He came on against Arsenal and absolutely devastated Arsenal. He was brilliant. This is another player that's come through the youth ranks from Chelsea. Very well regarded, highly regarded youth team. And I think that FA Cup team won 2 or 3 years on the trot. Brilliant team. But it's a shame because these players, if that's their team now, I think you'll be seeing them players introduced to the Chelsea team. Back then, those players would just sit in the Chelsea and then get loaned and then sold off. So it's a good thing things are changing at Chelsea. Lucas Torreira has no intention of returning to Arsenal and wants to make his move permanent. Well, that is going to be fun negotiations, considering the kind of the situation that Arsenal left Thomas Partey in. I left Atletico Madrid with Thomas Partey, and Atletico Madrid turning around and saying that they were absolutely fuming, and this relationship cannot be fixed. So it would be
interesting, that one. Very interesting.
See how these contract talks go down, considering they hadn't. I think Atletico Madrid had an opportunity to sign Lucas Torreira with an option or an obligation to buy of 25 million. Yeah, they were being funny with it, and they only wanted the loan. And I think they were trying to be too smart, which is why Arsenal dropped this bomb on them last minute with the Thomas Partey. So if they're going to want Lucas Torreira after this, Arsenal are going to want the money that you made Arsenal pay for Thomas Partey, or near that. Like that's what I do. So it's Arsenal are sitting pretty in this situation.
Yeah,
they've got a player who is happy where he is. Will probably play his best football he has in 2 years, and his valuation is only going to go up. So
yeah. I think good he ain't got a release clause. That's
Tell me about it. Let's stay away from that. Gerard Piqué has infuriated the dressing room at Barcelona as they claim he went behind their backs when he signed a new contract. They previously signed a letter refusing to negotiate with the board as they want the first team players to reduce their wages by 25%. Gerard Piqué is going to be up in the hierarchy. So I think now he doesn't really care about what he's, because he's probably thinking, well, you guys ain't going to be here in the next few weeks or the next few months. You're off at the end of the season, so he probably ain't fussed.
He's like the Sergio Ramos of Barcelona.
He's not. Look. We had Reyes on not long ago, and he speaks about Piqué as like. He's the Don Dada, mate. Once he's done here, he's going upstairs. Like there's no messing around with Piqué. So I think it was always going to happen.
His wife's secure as well. I mean, he needs to
pay the bills. are likely to wait until January to decide whether to open talks with director of football Marcel Brands over a new deal. Steve, Marcel Brands has been kind of lambasted by Everton fans for the previous transfer windows he's had. Probably, I think that was under who was that? Who was after Ronald Koeman? Was that Silva after Koeman? Was it Silva before Koeman?
Yeah, I think
it was Silva after Koeman, weren't it? So that transfer period with Silva, Brands has kind of been lambasted by some of the Everton fans. But surely this is
made up for it,
because the likes of Iwobi, Walcott, and in that time they had Sam Allardyce as manager as well. I don't know whether Marcel Brands was a part of it then, but he's kind of got a lot of flack for some of them signings. But I think also we've got to take into this as well is some of the opinions of the fans on players is not the same opinion of the manager on the players, such as Gylfi Sigurdsson. A lot of the Everton fans do not like Gylfi Sigurdsson, whereas I read comments recently about the players and the manager can't understand why there is that sort of ill feeling towards Gylfi Sigurdsson. They see him as a class player.
Yeah.
So
he is. I was watching him. They got beat, but I was watching him today, and he had a good game. He looked the only one up front up there who was looking like he's doing anything. But just going back to Brands again, he to be fair to him, he's more than made up for it, isn't he?
Oh mate, do you know what as well, Steve?
But last time they didn't have the money. He could only do what he does, by the money that the club's got, and it's been like. Very well sort of advertised of the money that's gone into Everton since Ancelotti has came, and since then Brands is there.
Yeah.
Now that money is there, he's taken it and he's gone and done the business.
And the thing is, it's like he's got to have guidance from the manager. So if you feel that Brands is bringing in the wrong players, but then you've also got to look at your manager there because the scope of players is miles away from what they were previously. It's a completely different type of player. It's I don't know. It's more experienced. I don't want to compare, but it's not. And if you look a bit deeper, the Gabriel deal for Everton was very much on the cards when it was Everton versus Napoli before Christmas or in and around Christmas. The Allen deal was done and was done from in and around Christmas, the same time as the Gabriel was looking good.
I could tell you that. I could tell you straight from the horse's mouth that all those deals, the Rodriguez, the Decore, the Allen, that they were done long ago. And we brought it up every week on the show.
Yeah. And even down to Everton Soares, it was a deal that was very close to being done, if not for COVID happening, and then other teams came in. I think Everton have had an excellent transfer window, and to even contemplate. Look, I don't know the full spectrum of what Brands has done, but from an outsider's view, I think he's done an excellent job working with Ancelotti. I think he's done a brilliant job. If you're talking about deals getting done and over the line for the prices that they get done for, I don't think you can moan. Rodriguez on a free, Allen for in and around 30 million euros.
Same for Decore.
Gabriel deal was nearly done for 22 million euros when that was first done, and he'd agreed personal terms with them.
You can't be upset with him. You can't be upset.
You can't be upset. I think Marcel Brands has done a really good job.
I see an Everton fan, slagging Brands off for the fact that he hasn't brought in a goalkeeper. But sometimes there's reasons behind it.
Yeah, because
sometimes.
Look, Steve, you've only got to look at the team we've just been talking about. The reason why you can't just go out and buy another first-team goalkeeper. Because what you're going to do, come on, people, look, think about it. because the people who are moaning about Brands not bringing the goalkeeper, will be the first people to moan about the fact that Brands has got 2 players for one position on high wages. Because if you're talking about bringing in another first team goalkeeper to take over from Jordan Pickford, you're talking about someone who's on similar wages, high wages as him. Where's Jordan Pickford going to go? And don't shrug your shoulders and say, I don't care, it's not my job, because you're the one that's moaning about him not being. Do you see what I'm saying? So you can't have a situation where Kepa and Mendy.
We was right there. We was right there on the Everton with every single transfer. So we knew what was going on all the way with the Everton transfer, all through the transfer window. And Romero, he had Romero.
Yeah.
And the only reason why Romero didn't go to Everton was because he didn't want to fight it out with Pickford. And I can tell you that straight. So he had Romero. So he hasn't really done anything wrong. That's like I see, sometimes it's a player. It's not always the bloke making the negotiations.
Exactly.
Sometimes the player turns you down.
Exactly, and a lot of the time it's the player, Steve. How many times it's been a transfer and it looks like it's done, and then bang, something happens. Players pulled out, something's changed. Last minute here, last minute there. Another club's come in and interested. Like the amount of deals where with the club and with the 2 clubs, the deal's done. When we say deal's done, those 2 clubs have agreed a price for the player. The player, they're sorting out the player, personal terms. Sweet. Yeah. Another club comes in and offers more money. So what's the club do that's selling the player? Sit there and go, no, we've already got a deal with this club. Yeah. We don't want your extra money. That's not how life works, people. If someone comes in with a higher bid, that club's going to start getting some attention. And then the other club's going to start leaning on the player to say, look, we've just got another bid. This might be more beneficial for your career. I heard they're offering more money. Like all sorts of things. These things happen. So, don't always blame.
Until that pens
goes
on that paper.
Yeah.
So transfers never, you've always got to, think.
Yeah. Anything can happen. Mesut Ozil could potentially be on TV for next week's Europa League clash of the Emirates. I remember seeing this previously with I can't remember what player, but he was still playing and he was commentating on his team, and I was sitting there like, this is so weird. How is this happening? But considering Mesut Ozil is not part of the first team squad, he's not part of the Europa League squad. He's got a bit of spare time in his hand. He'll potentially be in the studio with Jake Humphrey and Martin Keown this week or next week.
Why not though? Why not?
They're currently in talks, and it remains to be seen what will happen with that. Man City. We're just going to Man City in the second review, Steve. Man City manager Pep Guardiola is hopeful that he could seduce Eric Garcia into staying and not going to Barcelona. Steve, I know you had some information on Man City.
Well, it's not going to shock anybody, the fact that, the blue moon, is not rising at the moment at Man City. And especially with regarding Pep Guardiola. I don't suppose it will shock anybody for me to tell you that, Pep's 90% will be leaving Man City this summer. But what he's gone to ask the bosses at Man City for some money in January to get a striker. Aguero's out of a hamstring. Zayus is out as well. But he's been knocked back. He's been knocked back for a second time. And it looks like this season Raheem Sterling will either be Aguero's replacement or backup this season. Ferran Torres will be the player who will replace Raheem Sterling. So Sterling will go into the middle, Torres will go wide, and they're not getting, from what we was all thinking, that they're going to get a striker in January. They're not going to get the money.
Are they writing off this season then? Because with Raheem Sterling as their main striker, what are they watching?
Now, well, there is a shining light. One shining light for City fans. A £20 million considering this is Man City, argue award shares, but a £20 million fund has been handed to Pep
Well,
Guardiola.
go fund me or something. For Man City,
Yeah. And what they're going to do is they're going to go to Barcelona to try and convince Messi to come to the Man City in January. And this is 100%. This is going to depend on many things. I mean, Messi for one. They intend on making Garcia as part of the deal. At the moment, City are being very, very awkward, as you've just said. As a possible part of the deal. So when it comes to the transfer, they have got something to play with Messi and Garcia. Barcelona want Garcia a lot. So this is happening in January, and apart from that, there'd be no striker coming in, and Sterling is the one who's going to be playing up front. And the last couple of games, he's been sort of being pushed up that way. But he's been refused the money. But that 20 million is just been handed to Pep to try and go and get Messi in January.
Yeah, I mean, like you're trying to get Messi halfway through a season. Like, I know 20 million.
Very cheeky.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, I know. 20 million for Barcelona right now is probably appealing, and the fact if you was to add Eric Garcia onto that, it's even more appealing. You're losing Messi later on in that season, and I think if it's a case of they're trying to convince Messi, it probably means that Barcelona can wipe off the. How much is it? I think it's like something ridiculous, like 60. I can't remember what it is. I think it's 60 million euros. The loyalty bonus they've got to pay Messi on top of that.
So what it is, Eric Garcia is the key to this. Barcelona really, really want Garcia.
Yeah.
Garcia really wants to go to Barcelona.
Yeah.
Man City at the moment are saying, "You're not going Barcelona. You're staying here." So they can play with Garcia to sort of with the Messi deal as well, and put the two together, and maybe that'll push Barcelona over the line. It's very tricky. It's very true. It's going to happen. They're going to go for it. We'll have to wait and see what happens. I'm sure, but Messi would go, wouldn't he?
I don't know. Do you know what? I think in Messi's eyes, it might be less hassle. It may be the best way to say goodbye to the fans, to Barcelona, by just doing it, which is in his contract. It runs out at the end of the season. He gets his loyalty bonus. Everyone's expecting it to happen then. For everything to sort of change route and direction and happen in January, it would be a bit like recently a lot of players keep saying, I want to go out of the front door, not the back door. And I'm thinking to myself, what are you even talking about, bruv? This is legit. Yeah. What are you even talking about? That is one where I think that'll be through the back door. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's one where I could understand if the player went, I want to leave through the front door, not the back door. The front door is my contract runs out at the end of the season. Everyone knows I'm done at the end of the season.
Yeah.
Halfway through the season, it's a bit.
Yeah. I mean, other than that, for me, putting Sterling up top and as good as he is, and putting Ferran Torres out on the left to replace Sterling.
It's risky.
I think it's risky, and I think what you said just a few minutes ago about, I think it is more or less writing the season off. But they're not giving in the money, and we know a few weeks ago Pep's had this meeting with the guys, the bosses at Man City, and he wanted 4 players, and they've turned him down.
Yeah.
He wanted the money. He wanted them in the summer.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we spoke about that he wanted a left back. We spoke about that he wanted another centre back. We spoke about that we wanted a centre forward. We spoke about that he wanted a midfield player. And then we spoke about that when is it ever that Manchester City has never been given the money to go and challenge for the title. And so that's the reason why they're not giving him, is because they don't want to give him to Pep.
Yeah, it's. I mean, it's probably a bit disrespectful to me saying it's writing off the season, but I really do rate Raheem Sterling, but he's not a striker. He's not your, and he has had really good seasons where I think he's hit double 20s in this season. I think he's done it a couple of times, but that's going in from the wing. That's from the wing. That's with Aguero up top as well. Like I just don't. It's completely different. If you're coming on the wing, you've got Sergio Aguero's on one wing, and you've got someone else on the other wing, as opposed to you're the main guy up top. It's a different game, and I'm not sure that Raheem Sterling is the one to play it, mate. But it remains to be seen.
I mean, Silva as well. They haven't replaced David Silva yet either. I was having a conversation.
You spoke earlier about Hazard, though. How do you replace David Silva? David Silva's one of them players. It's like, it's so hard to replace. You've got to change your team. That Man City team was essentially not built around David Silva, but had David Silva in mind of whatever they did, because he's such a class player. He's so integral into the way that Man City team changed over the years. Like to get someone, maybe you could say that's your Ferran Torres is your David Silva. Because and you're building the team around him long term, but I don't see you getting in someone to replace directly David Silva. I think you've got to change the landscape of what you're doing.
Yeah, because even the other day when I watched the last couple of games, the last game, I mean, I know he's just come back from injury, but even Kevin De Bruyne doesn't look the same.
Because I think he's lacking motivation. He's looking around him. He's seeing that things aren't being bought. He's seeing this has not got the same energy as it did a few years ago when I first got here. And that's worrying for a player.
Kyle Walker's been told that he's on the way out, and it's we're talking. I mean, January's and the summer, I think it's all going to be about Man City. I think everybody's going to have their eyes on Man City to see what they're going to do.
They're going to be spending big amounts. Yep, cheers for that, Steve. Raul and Mauricio Pochettino are contenders for the managerial job if Zidane is sacked. According to Soccer News, Arsenal are considering a move for Donnell Marlin from PSV. Now, I've heard nothing on this. This is a story that came up last season, early doors. It's just because he used to play. It's just because he used to play for Arsenal. Because he used to play for Arsenal, I think it's a bit of that. Yeah, he's had a bad knee injury, and he's only just come back from that. And I don't see Arsenal going in that direction. I just don't see it. We've heard nothing on it, and we're not saying we know everything that happens at Arsenal, but we've been pretty much on the ball, as you've seen with every Arsenal transfer. So it would surprise me. And during that time when we were getting a lot of information about Arsenal, a lot of names were being thrown about. If we never reported on them, we were only reported on the ones we were told about, and lo and behold, they were the only ones that were actually happened. So or were close to happening. We've heard nothing on it. So I would say it's a nothing at the moment.
I spoke to James. He'd never heard of nothing on it either. So
and James said the same with regards to. Yeah, James said the same about regards to his knee injury. It's a very risky one, and he'd have Arsenal make sure they check that out before they even make a purchase to him. And he said that previously when I had that the first Zoom with him. Feel free to go and check that out. The Zoom with James Rowe. It's on the page. Very good one. He details a lot of Dutch footballers. Very good one. Man City are closing on a deal for Partizan Belgrade winger Filip Stanovic, youngster. We checked that out with our locals. That's in the mail. Arsenal are looking closely at Mitchell Bergkamp, son of Arsenal legend Dennis Bergkamp.
He's got some stick, isn't he, this week? Isn't he, the poor boy?
Look. There's a lot of people that say, and this is the best thing. Yeah, this is the best thing. When if people want to say he's only got this opportunity because of his dad, you can have that. You can have that. Look, it is what it is. Life is about who you know. Trust me. I'm old enough to know that. It's very much about who you know. So start making contacts, kids. Otherwise, it's just a long, winding road to where you want to get to, which is generally the top. So make your links. But one thing that I had to rubbish, was if he got released from a second division Dutch team, how good is he? Now, Didier Drogba got released from a first division French team. Yeah. He then nearly retired from football and then decided to change his position from a right back to a striker and then smashed it with Marseille for 2 seasons and Chelsea bought him in. He's one of the best strikers that Chelsea have had. Yeah. Arsenal had just brought in a kid called George Lewis. He was released by a third division Norwegian club. Didn't rate him. He was picked up by a second division Norwegian club and put into the under-23s. His coach himself said he was shocked that Arsenal had come in for him because he didn't see that he was not disrespecting him, but anything special. He's good technique and he's a bit flashy, but he didn't see anything there which was a Premier League, a big Premier League team coming for. So it's not always the case that every coach has a different view on what is a good player and what he wants for his team. Yeah, to be at that level there, he's not saying there's a rubbish player. It's just not what suits for his team. So it might suit Arsenal. You never know. Anyway, it's just a trial. All right? He's just training with the under-23s. Let him be. If anything happens, if anything comes of it, brilliant. Because we'll have another Dennis Bergkamp name in the Arsenal ranks. If nothing comes of it, then good luck to him for wherever he goes next. Do you know what I mean? Because that's what it is.
I see an interview with him on YouTube, and he seems like a lovely kid. So leave him alone.
Yeah, leave him be. Neymar looks like he's made a U-turn. He's going to extend his stay at PSG. Chelsea midfielder Jorginho says he was open to talks with Arsenal after reports of Arsenal's interest in him in the summer. Tottenham have offered forward Son Heung-min a new 5-year deal worth $200,000 a week. It's about time they broke their
cool.
Because I mean,
tie him down.
There's clubs sniffing. Trust me. Liverpool will be making an official bid for Schalke defender Ozan Kabak in January. Yes, they will be.
As we said.
Yeah, and we got confirmation again from yesterday. They will be making an official bid, and then literally about 2 hours after that, it was somewhere else on Twitter, and then the following day, it was in the Sunday Mirror. So yes, Liverpool will be making an approach. They are currently in talks with Schalke, and it looks like Ozan Kabak will be a Liverpool player probably come January. Leeds want to make.
Be great to see him in the Premiership.
His suit is the Premier League. Leeds want to make another attempt to sign 17-year-old English midfielder Sean McGurk from Wigan. Wolves, West Ham, Crystal Palace, Southampton, and Newcastle are monitoring 27-year-old Reading captain Liam Moore. That was in team talk. Ole Gunnar Solskjaer says Donny van der Beek's time will come. Then why did you buy him? Donny van der Beek ain't someone who sits on the bench. Donny van der Beek was going to go Real Madrid into their team, and now he's sitting on the bench at Man United.
Is he a replacement for someone?
Is he?
Is he a replacement for a certain person?
Paul Pogba, maybe.
Or I mean, I don't know. I mean, they got Fred, they got McTominay, they got Matic.
But I think
Pogba.
Because
he should be in there.
I heard someone say, "Oh, he's this, he's that, he's got great work rate, and this and that," and they're gone, "Oh, they should get rid of Fred or McTominay and put him in there." And I'm like, "You're playing Donny van der Beek as a defensive midfielder? Like, what is wrong with people? Like you're just trying to nullify anything these players have got and just putting them in a position. You don't play Donny van de Beek in a DM. It'd be like getting a Ferrari and sticking your golf clubs in the back and riding it around the golf course, mate. You don't do that. You don't.
I thought they was crying out for him. I thought they was crying out for him the other night. I thought it was crying out for him. They had Cavani on up front, and okay, he had one good chance, Cavani, but he had nothing. No one feeding him. They bought Matter off, which would have been the other person who would be feeding him, and I don't know. It was a strange one. Very, very strange one. I like him, and I hope to see him play soon.
Yeah, he keeps his head down and seems like a good guy as well. So, yes. Hey, thank you very much for everyone who joined us tonight. I'm going to go down to the comments section quickly. Peter G, Gareth Lewis, we'll see you next week. Going to be a great show. You're not... you need to change your name, bruv. I'm going to call you Kiwi. I'm going to call you Kiwi Steve. All right. Coburn's back. Yep, and that is it. Thank you very much to Son of Chelsea, Daniel Charles. Great pod tonight. I really enjoyed myself on that one. We'll definitely be having him back. Thank you to Steve, our chief scout.
Yeah. Thanks for joining us, everybody. And don't forget to join us next week. A big one, new member of the team.
Yeah, so, a big one, big announcement next week. Oh, big announcement now. Why not?
Why not?
Nathan Ellerton, former Wigan, Watford, Derby County. I can't even think where else. But yeah, we'll be joining the Transfer Exchange Show on a weekly basis. Talking about Man United. He's going to come in for a little 20-minute segment. Whether we've got transfer news, whether we're talking about youth, whether we're talking about the biggest topics happening at Man United at the moment, we're going to be covering it with Nathan Ellerton, and it should be really good. It should be a really good spot every week. You can catch former Premier League footballer Nathan Ellerton on the Transfer Exchange Show. The review every Sunday at 8. Make sure you tune in. Make sure you like and subscribe. Bing bong bong. That was like a.
You'd have to sort them out.
That was like a pre-recorded message. That was slick. Thank you very much. If I say so myself. Make sure you like and subscribe, people. Thank you. Make sure you go and follow the Instagram and Twitter. All right. And make sure you tell your friends from coast to coast about the transfer exchange. I was about to go into rap there. Oh my God, I'm multi-talented. Too much. Too much. All right. I'd like to say thank you to everyone who's been on, everyone who's in the comment section, everyone who's watched tonight. Thank you for the support. It's the big one next week. It's the last one of the team editions, and then we're going to go into something different, something to keep you on your toes, and it's always going to be interesting. But yeah, peace out. Stay